That's fundamentally the American code. It's possible. It should be possible. Bill Lear, the great inventor of the Learjet, was told that his plane could not fly. He was not an aeronautical engineer. They told him it could not fly. Well, he believed it could. And based on that possibility, he made it so. We believe in possibility. What else? What else we believe in is the idea of individual liberty. We take it for granted. We need to be reminded that when the Constitution was written, the very idea that an individual was worth something was alien to most of the world. You were a cog. No, you were a piece of a cog. No, you were a surface of a piece of a cog in a big machine, and you really didn't matter. In this country, somebody said, you know, it's the other way around. People have certain inalienable rights given to them by their creators. They ought to be absolutely free to make their own decisions. What else? The other thing that makes America America is the very simple fact that we believe in something greater than ourselves. Now, we talk about, we shouldn't say things out loud about God, etc. Do you know that the United States of America, based on a Pew research of a couple of years ago, is on a par with developing countries in terms of a belief in God? 67% of Americans believe that religion is very important in their lives. If you rate that against Europe, it's astronomically higher. Astronomically higher. We really do believe that there is something greater than ourselves, which is a good thing. Because when you take collective congenital amnesiacs who are fiercely independent, if there weren't some form of governing principle keeping that in check, what a country this would be, not the one we're in. So we believe in God. By the way, I believe the Constitution meant for separation of church and state, but absolutely unequivocally not separation of God and man. Two different principles. We need to think about that. What else? Another thing that makes America America is that we are pragmatic combatants. Other countries go to war in order to kill, crush, and destroy the enemy. We generally go to war with a purpose. When we believe that purpose is no longer achievable, for example, in Vietnam, we pack up and leave. There's a very strong argument that says militarily the United States won the war in the 1968 Tet Offensive. We destroyed the Viet Cong as a fighting force. We crushed them. We eliminated a large part of the North Vietnamese army in Vietnam. That would have been a good time to say we won. But what we came to conclude is that the price of continuing to win was too high for our society. We need to end this. So 2 months later, we were negotiating for peace. Very pragmatic. You don't want to stir America. By the way, contrary to popular opinion, Americans have been historically incredibly unwilling to go to war. We fight it, we claw it. Brokaw's greatest generation, they didn't march off to war happily. They were dragged into it, the truth is. Even during the Second World War, American units would just leave. They would just give up and go, leave the front. These are things that are not often talked about. People come in America to the decision that something's not worth fighting for, it's over. As a matter of fact, the Constitution is a great example of that. We don't believe in consensus, we believe in basically pragmatic acquiescence. If you read the letter of transmission that went with the Constitution of the United States, this is kind of the letter from the guys who wrote it to the Congress. It doesn't say, we have created a marvelous document. It's beautiful. It's perfect. The letter actually says, number one, this is the document to which the least number of people objected. Okay? That's the truth about the Constitution of the United States. You've got to keep that in mind as we go forward. Consensus is not what we live for. We don't really like consensus as Americans. Okay? We acquiesce and we move on so we get something done. The other thing that the document said is recognizing that people abuse power. We're going to do this little thing called separation of powers. Okay, the separation of powers, very important thing. Okay, what else? Pragmatic combatants. What else I can tell you about America is that we have three aspects of what make up America, basically. Three codes, if you will. And the way this works is kind of a little pyramid of three. So the first one is, what makes America America is that we value your right to be you so long as you give that same consideration to others. Okay? That's number one. Number two, we believe that America essentially is a country where you are entitled to the space that you are able to carve out for yourself based on your own initiative. Okay? No free gifts. It's interesting that in the Constitution it says you have the unequivocal right to life, the unequivocal right to liberty, and the right to pursue happiness. not to be gifted with it, not to be entitled to it, just the right to try, the possibility. Okay? So initiative is a big idea in America. That's why we reward it, that's why we talk about it. Now, the European model is a lot different. If you study Europe, in Europe, traditionally, and even to this day, the basic mindset is you are nothing, you are no one, you have nothing, until someone grants it to you, usually the Lord. And when the Lord, now the government, hands you something, you get down on one knee and you say, thank you. Americans don't know how to bend the knee. That comes from the German side of us. All right, what else is true of America? However much we may disagree, and that's a lot. We disagree on almost anything. You put 50 Americans in a room, there's 100 opinions. We may disagree, but at certain moments in time, we know we have to come together to get something done. Like, for example, writing a constitution, going to war, whatever it might be. As soon as that's over, we go back to being apart. But that's wonderful. Here's an interesting thing. If you do the math, in the last 10 presidential elections, the average American president has been elected by no more than 25 to 28% of the population. Anybody talks to you about landslides? That never happened. Mandates? Not at all. What's even more fascinating is the way it works, regardless of the number of registered members of each political party. Roughly 26-25% of the voters in any election are Republicans. The other 25-26% are roughly, oh gee, I don't know, Democrats. What does that mean? Every time we go to have an election, Republicans and Democrats cancel each other out. Cancel each other out. So the only people really making the decision are the swing votes. American presidents are literally generally elected by 5 or 6% who ally themselves with the other 26%, and we have an election. What all of this means that at any given time, an American president was either not the candidate of, or was actively worked against by 70-some% of the country. And that's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing because it keeps America from going too far in either direction. When we start talking about everybody's on the same page, we're going the same way, people like me get nervous. That's what Hitler said. That's what Stalin said. That's what Perón said. We're all going exactly in the same place. So we need to think and understand that we'd like to go back to our status of GAG.